Berkshire Council. The meeting has been live streamed via YouTube, so members of the public are able to follow proceedings. Council members are present in the council chamber for this meeting. Any member of the council who attended remotely will be entitled to speak and ask questions when invited to do so by myself. The officers in attendance are the Chief Executive, Nigel Lynn, Executive Director for Resources, Joseph Holmes, the Executive Director for Adult Social Care, Paul Cole, the Executive Director for Children and Family Services, Anna Marie Dodds, and the Executive Director for Police, Claire Lawrence. Nicola Thompson, the Deputy Morning Officer, will be the legal advisor to the meeting. I am assisted by Ben Ryan, the clerk of the meeting, and by Stephen Shard, the Zoom host. Welcome to honorary aldermen in attendance. Before we start this evening's meeting, I would like to take the opportunity to remind members that they are subject to the Council's Code of Conduct, which requires us to uphold certain standards, including, importantly, respect. Members across the chamber may not always agree with one another, but I would ask that in our disagreements, we endeavour always to be respectful to our views. I would also ask members of the public attending this meeting to refrain from approaching councillors unless they're invited to do so. During the meeting, when a motion has been proposed and seconded, I will ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to conduct a vote and show of hands. Moving on to item 1. I will ask the Monitoring Officer if there are any apologies for absence being received.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from councillors Phil Barnett, Patrick Clark, Paul Dick, Clive Hooker, Jane Langford, Jeff Mays, who I understand may try and attend via Zoom, Eric Patterson, Stephanie Stevenson, Joe Stewart, Martha Vickers, Matt Shakespeare, and Dominic Bowick. I also understand that apologies may have been received from Councillor Lee Dillon, but may try and attend via Zoom if he's able. And Councillor Nigel Foot has indicated he may need to leave the meeting early. We also have apologies from honorary aldermen and alderwomen. Hilary Cole, Adrian Edwards, Graham Jones, Rick Jones, Gordon Lundy, Graham Pask, Andrew Rolls, Molly Locke. Are there any apologies from the floor? And finally, Councillor Abbs and Councillor Aloko are attending remotely. Councillor Abbs has got his hand up. Oh.
I would like to draw members' attention to the sad news that Honorary Alderman Jeff Beck recently passed away. Honorary Alderman Jeff Beck dedicated 16 years to West Berkshire Council, and in that time he had been chairman of the council in 2014 and even mayor of Newbury in 2011. I would like to invite the council to hold a minute of silence to commemorate the life of Jeff Beck. I will now I will now invite other members who wish to say a few words about Jeff. I'd like to call Councillor Stuart Gorley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just thought, thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words about Councillor Jeff Beck. And again, I want to pass my condolences on to his friends, family and Conservative colleagues. I didn't know Jeff for very long, but obviously I served for a while as a Clay Hill ward councillor at Newbury Town Council. And from the off, he was someone that I hugely admired and respected. And he had a savage sense of humour, I think it's fair to say. And I think certainly as I've been around Clay Hill for a while now, Jeff was and is really well known across the ward and the areas that make this up. And he was extremely well thought of by residents. Jeff was a true community advocate and worked extremely hard for Clay Hill and the wider West Berkshire. So he will be sorely missed across the community. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jeff Brooks.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've obviously worked with Jeff Beck on this council for a good number of years. He was, for people who don't know him, he was the archetypical ward council. He worked so hard in Clay Hill. He became Mr. Clay Hill in some respects. I would go to my osteopath up there. He's fixing my shoulder at top of Turnpike Road. And he'd say, well, of course, this is the Beck's territory here, isn't it? And I would hurt my shoulder, you know, I'd tense up. Because his wife, Alma, was on the council as well. And he's a thoroughly nice man who worked hard for his residents. He'd pad the streets and talk to any resident and see if he could help them. And he put in a good innings here, good stint, and we respect him for that. What members may not know or remember, I'm sure Alderman Paul Bryant will, is that when we were able to have written reports printed out, I know we can't now, Chief Executive, Councillor Beck would come in and he would have dozens of these little bits of tape on pages, pointing out things like a comma missing, a colon in the wrong place, a misspelling, and all sorts of grammatical issues that I'm sure shaped up our writing skills here amongst our officers pretty darn well. And we waited for his intervention and telling us what was wrong with the report. So he's missed. He had stepped down, obviously, and we won Clay Hill back then, didn't we? It was interesting. But I'd like to pay tribute to his hard, dedicated work for residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Jeremy Cotton.
Thank you. Like many here, only for about 5 years did I know Alderman Jeff Beck. Putting it simply, he was a gentleman. I was his vice chairman on governance, and he was very kind and considerate and always took your views into account. And I think I have to say he was one of the best chairs that I've ever seen. And I don't know in this chamber that you can give a better tribute than that. God bless him. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Pennyworth.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to put on public record my thanks and gratitude to Jeff. And it's poignant to think that it was only this corresponding meeting a year ago that he was deservedly made alderman. I first met Jeff and Alma in my mayoral year in Hungerford, which coincided with his chairmanship of this council in 2014. Soon after that, I got a tap on the shoulder and was asked to stand in the old Victoria ward in the following year's district council elections. As I was contesting a neighbouring ward to Jeff's Clay Hill, he rather took me under his wing. His knowledge of his patch and his people was remarkable. He knew the area literally like the back of his hand. There was no shortcut he didn't know, and no block of flats, the campaigner's nemesis, was off limits. He laughed when I told him he could get into places that would make a cat burglar flush. During COVID, I found myself holed up, isolating in a less than salubrious hotel in Newbury for a week or so, and during that time succumbed to the dreaded lurgy. I was left feeling terribly sorry for myself. but was humbled to have Jeff, who was by then less than well himself, offer to collect me and take me home a minute after midnight on my release day. Jeff had a great sense of duty and was devoted to public service. And I don't think I could have had a better mentor, and I hope that I have been and will be in future able to live up to his high standards. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Somner.
Thank you, Chairman. Quite heartwarming to hear the things that have been said already about Jeff. I first met Jeff straight after my election in 2015. He was always a gentleman, and he was often a cheeky one. And Councillor Stewart, were she here, would be attesting to exactly the same thing. Amazingly knowledgeable, hugely supportive, and supported. The support for Jeff on the campaign trail was really quite amazing, and something that should be repeated wherever it can be by all of us. As has been said, he was the greatest advocate for his residents in particular, but fair to say for all residents across the district. And I have to say it was particularly humbling whilst attending Jeff's funeral service to hear how well he and Elmer were thought of and how respected. And Lord Benyon had some wonderful words to say for him on the day, which in all honesty really brought a lump to one's throat. He is a man that without doubt will be missed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Vickers.
Chairman, thank you. I was actually the first political victim of Councillor Jeff Beck. The 2000 election saw me trying to get back on the council, having been elected to the old district council in 95, and then got distracted by trying to get into Parliament. Well, been there, done that. But he was just amazing on that campaign. Him and Alma together generally must have knocked on every door in what was then the Turnpike ward more than once. And it had been the safest ward for the Liberal Democrats in Newbury. And I thought it was going to be a shoo-in, to the extent that I was told to go and work somewhere else in the next door ward on polling day. Well, I certainly regretted that. Phil Barnett kept his seat because Phil had been an excellent ward councillor, still is in Greenham. But I think what Jeff has taught us, apart from being a really honourable gentleman and a man I've been proud to serve alongside for the intervening years, most of the intervening years, because I didn't, of course, get elected in 2000, was that if you work hard and you've got a decent party behind you that provides all the wherewithal, and that Councillor Labbs found that was a bit of a problem for him. If you work hard, you can get elected anywhere, and it's jolly hard to get rid of you if you keep serving your community. So I think there's few of us left in this room, either officers or members, a couple of aldermen over there facing me who can remember Jeff, but I was proud to have served those years alongside him, even though I'm in a different party. And I saw him right to the end of his political career as a member of Newbury Town Council. What I have to say, he often voted with us. And that, I think, is something we should all remember. Sometimes, if you feel that your own side perhaps hasn't got it right and the other side has, you should vote with your conscience sometimes. Thank you, Chairman.
And I'd like to just finish off with a few words myself. Jeff was always courteous and welcoming when I first met him on becoming a councillor for Greenham Parish. Also, when I was elected chairman of this council, he was very kind and congratulating me, telling me how proud he was when he was chairman of West Berkshire Council. He was a dedicated, hard-working councillor. As I say, a good old-fashioned councillor. There's not many left like Jeff. Jeff was a dedicated West Park councillor and an effective Newbury Town councillor for many years, along with his wife Alma. Although he didn't win his seat in 1997, Jeff attended every meeting, took detailed notes, and then came to the next meeting to challenge us in detail. He was a thorn in our flesh, but a true champion of his community and of democracy. We all had a huge respect for him. Thank you. I've attended, I'm sorry.
Chairman, may I briefly make some remarks as well? Sorry, I didn't know that we were going to have the opportunity to do this. I just want to also pay tribute to Jeff. He was incredibly supportive towards me. I know he worked incredibly hard. He was widely respected in his ward. One of the last memories that I have of him was at a site visit meeting where he turned up with his rollator and managed to smash his way through a load of brambles to get into the back garden of where the planning application was. So he was incredibly dedicated right up to the end. He is the only councillor who has brought tears to my eyes in the time that I've been a councillor, and for good reason, because he said some very kind words and very supportive words to me, and I was extremely grateful for that. And his humanity shone through, so I will miss him very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you all who spoke. I have attended over 18 engagements since this council last met. I will just speak about 3 this evening. The citizen ceremony. I have attended 2 recently, and it amazes me how proud everyone is when they take part in the citizen ceremonies. My son-in-law took his in 2021. I had a wonderful day in Reading at the mock trials, and I was impressed with the knowledge of our young people, and I'm pleased to tell everyone that Trinity School won. Well done, Trinity. Daisy's Dream. What a wonderful day my wife and I had at Englefield House, with an afternoon of delightful singing and dancing for family members and guests. Daisy's Dream provides support for children and young people who have been affected by bereavement, either by supporting them in preparing for loss or working with them following the death of someone important to them. I was also extremely pleased to inform Councillor Joe Stewart that I had chosen Daisy's Dream for my charity for the year 24-25. I will pass over to Councillor Vickers to say a few words about his engagements.
Just 2, Chairman. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I attended the charity. Oh, I've forgotten his name now, but the one that has every Wednesday at the library. Edu Cafe. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to be invited to speak, but Edu Cafe, I think, is something that really has deserved the jump start that we gave it with a certain amount of funding. And I was very pleased to see in the paper today that it's now got some lottery funding to enable it to keep going. But the work they do is really valuable. So I was enjoying my few minutes there, and I think Councillor Foote was there as well, weren't you? Yes. And the other engagement was the anniversary of the Volunteer Centre, the 60th anniversary of the Volunteer Centre, which took place at 8th Space, which is another institution that I was very happy to support when it set up. But the Volunteer Centre, what could we do without it? We need our volunteers, and especially in the financial situation that the council finds us. So they've been excellently run by Gary Polson, who, as you know, has recently stood down as its director. But I was there to wish them well on behalf of the council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And next, a recognition of apprenticeship achievements. I'm delighted to share some fantastic news regarding our recent success at the West Berkshire Training Consortium's Rising Stars Apprenticeship Awards. West Berkshire Council was honoured to be selected as the best large apprentice employer. This award recognises our unwavering commitment to developing our people, fostering young talent from underprivileged and SEND backgrounds, and supporting apprenticeships within our community. I'm particularly proud to highlight the achievements of several of our staff who were nominated for exceptional contributions. Danielle Amor was selected as the finalist in the Workplace Mentor of the Year category. Shelley Curtis and Tom Allport were both finalists in the Functional Skills Learner of the Year category. Tom not only won this award, but also in the Apprentice of the Year category, making history by winning both categories which he was nominated. Congratulations, Tom, to all apprentices who were nominated this year. This award highlights the hard work and commitment to our team to utilise the apprenticeship levy and continuously develop individuals and the council. I will now hand this award over to the CEO, Nigel Lynn. Well done to everybody. Moving on to agenda item 3, the minutes. I will propose that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 9th of May 2024 be signed as a correct record. Can I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second those, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any amendments from the floor? No. Yeah. Yeah, can we take a vote, please?
I'll say just to formally announce then that those minutes have been approved. Yeah. Yeah. Just keep ask to be liked.
Yeah, can I have a show of hands, please?
I propose, Chairman.
Oh, sorry.
Keep your hands up.
Sorry, I think they were proposed and seconded, but I can confirm that the minutes of the meeting have been approved. Councillor Vickers was the
Yeah, yeah.
seconder.
Moving to agenda item 8. So public questions. Oh, no. Oh, no. I will ask the monitor officers, are there any declarations of interest submitted prior to the meeting? And is there any declarations of interest from the floor?
So none have been received ahead of the meeting. Are there any from the floor? Councillor Sumner.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Item 20, the health and wellbeing report. As an employee of the Royal Berkshire Hospital, which is noted in the report. At this stage, however, I don't believe it should prevent me from taking any part in any debate that may take place on the paper.
Are there any other declarations from the floor?
Moving on to agenda item 5, petitions. May I ask members if there are any petitions they wish to present to the council? No. Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6, public questions. I'd like to call Mr. William Richardson. Is he here in person? Just wait for the questions to come up on the screen.
Mr. Richardson's here.
Might be on Zoom. All right, I'll move on to yeah, we'll provide the answer in writing. I'd like to now call Simon Pike via Zoom to be answered by Denise Gaines.
Chairman, Mr. Pike did inform us that he wouldn't be able to stay for the duration of the meeting. It looks like he's had to depart, so it'll be a written answer for him, I
Okay,
think.
thank you. Oh, that's it then, because the next one's William Richardson.
Yeah, the other two
Yeah,
are the same.
the other two are, William Richardson will have to be in writing and Simon Pike in writing.
That was easy. That was easy.
Moving to agenda item 7, membership of committees. Councillor Jeff Brooks, the proposed changes to the substitutes for Eastern Area Planning. Councillor Chris Leiter. Oh, sorry.
Very grateful. Thank you, Chairman. I'll read them out if I may. I'm moving that councillors Chris Reed replace councillor Dillon as a substitute on the Eastern Area Planning Committee, and that councillor Janine Lewis replace myself as a substitute on the Eastern Area Planning Committee. So 2 changes there for the council's consideration.
Can I have a seconder, please?
I'd like to second that, Chairman.
Thank you. I will ask the Deputy Monitoring Officer to conduct a vote.
So can I ask all members who are for that proposal? Thank you. I can confirm that's been carried unanimously.
Moving on to agenda item 8, motions from previous meetings. Councillors to note the response has been provided to the motion from Councillor Heather Codling on support for care experienced people at the executive on the 23rd of May. Moving on to agenda item 9 to 16.
Councillor Codling.
Yeah, you want to say in, Councillor Codling?
Nothing to add
Yeah.
than what was said in previous meetings, and I'm just pleased it's going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to agenda item 9 to 16. The council asks to note that meetings are laid out in the agenda items. There is no need for a vote. Moving on to agenda item 17, Monitor Officer's Annual Report 23-24, Conduct and Ethics. May I invite Councillor Jeff Brooks to formally move the recommendation continue within this report.
Very, very pleased to introduce this report, Chairman. Members will know.
Can I
Do you want the seconder before I speak? I'll move the report.
Happy to second that, Chairman. I'll reserve my right.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will be familiar with this report. It is an annual report on the conduct, frankly, of councillors, which is appropriate. And we are held to account. And there are, and I'm talking to members in the gallery now, there are occasions where there are complaints against councillors and their behaviour. And quite rightly, there's a body that reviews this. What I'm really pleased to draw your attention to is the table in 5.25. Because what you will see there is that in terms of district councillors, there have only been 6 complaints in the period we're reviewing. And parish councillors, similarly, only 6 complaints. Down, that's 12 combined, down from 22 in the previous year, 32 in the year before that, and 33 in the year before that. It would seem that we're behaving ourselves. But more to the point, it would seem that we are treating each other and our residents with respect, as we properly should. And therefore, perhaps our challenge is to not slip from that trend, which shows that there are not many complaints against parish councillors and district councillors. We have our scraps and our squabbles in here, but I think they're good-hearted. And I'm looking at some wry smiles the other side of the chamber. But I do think we've got respect for everybody in the chamber, and we can go and over to a pub and have a drink and enjoy each other's company after perhaps disagreeing or probably disagreeing in this chamber. So let's keep this record up. The other thing I just draw attention to, and that's gifts and hospitality. I have been written to by a member of our staff saying, why is there even a £25 gift limit? Why isn't it 0? And in fact, I suspect that's legislative, but I will be taking that up with Sarah Clark, because frankly, perhaps there shouldn't be a value in a gift that we have to declare. I'm bound to say in 32 years, I've only ever had to declare one gift, which was a bowl when I came off Green and Common Trust as a non-executive director on behalf of the council. But generally speaking, I think we'll all agree, there is very little in West Berkshire where you're asked to go out for some sort of lunch, which you might have to declare. You don't get much for 25 quid in lunch these days, or a gift, which is unnecessary, So I will take that up, but generally, Chairman, excellent report, excellent behaviour. Well done, all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. In your esteemed role as chairman, You get invited to go to Reading Borough or Bracknell, and they provide sandwiches and tea and coffee. Well, I've declared that because you want to be totally transparent. I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody like certainly borough councils, even if it was a non-governmental situation where you are there as a guest to talk and discuss to them, and you happen to be there at lunchtime. What do they expect? You to go out and get your sandwiches? I don't think so. I actually, in the 2 years I have been chairman, as into a gift, I actually got, not this time, I got nothing, but the before, Redibus gave me a £3.50 kitchen clock. And I went, oh, I'm going to declare this. And then staff, no, you don't need to. No, because it's the only thing I ever got. And I think you can say that fairly safely about most of the chairs. And please, let's not get too carried away with saying, oh, no, nothing ever. Because there are times when it is appropriate. If somebody came up to me and gave me, or tried to give me a Jeroboam, well, champagne, well, no, I wouldn't take it. Equally, many years ago, when I was a chairman of Eastern Area Planning, I was invited by a developer to go to lunch. And I said, no. So there are times where it is appropriate and where it's inappropriate. And I don't think we should get hung up on the £25 limit because most of them are well below that. So thank you. Just a bit of an experience over the couple of years that I've been. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks, Chairman. And just something that Councillor Brooks and Councillor Cotting mentioned there about this limit. I'm a member of a couple of professional institutes, the chartered accountant and financial analyst, and our code of ethics specifically doesn't have a limit like this because it's principles based rather than rules based. So we as accountants, and it should be similar to us as councillors as well, we're told that we should never accept any gift or hospitality that could be seen to affect our independence or affect our decision making in any way. But there's no limit, there's no monetary value of that. And what you tend to find is that you end up with greater compliance because of it. People are more careful because you always have to consider that principle. If you take that by the letter of the law, you could accept 10 gifts, each worth £24.99 at different points, and that could be seen to affect your independence. So I'd be interested to see what the outcome of those discussions are, but just my 2 pence worth on that.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you to Mrs Clark for the production of this report and to the leader for presenting it this evening. I think it's also incumbent on us to thank the members of parish councils who have served alongside us. The report mentions Bill Graham, David Southgate and Anne Budd. And when I've had contact with them, I've found them to be extremely diligent and in their work, and their advice has been invaluable. So I think we should take the opportunity to thank them as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Councillor Gaines.
Don't think there's anything to add, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Brooks.
All I said was I talked to the monitoring officer about the principle. So Jeremy, I wasn't getting setting a hair running per se, but I've been asked by a member of staff to consider that, and I will. Otherwise, good report. Thanks for the support of the chamber. And I declare that we should move the motion and be carried. Thank you.
Then vote again. Yeah. There's no need to hold a vote, so it's just noted. Reporting, moving to agenda item 18, governance and annual committee report. May I invite Councillor Ian Cottingham to formally move the recommendation contained within the report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I move this report.
Can I have a seconder, please? Jeremy Cotton, please.
I would like to say.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Chair. I introduced the report, so really key.
Sorry, if you wish to reserve your right.
Yes. Why not? Thank you.
Okay to speak now? Okay, right. So within the report, it covers numerous areas regarding governance of West Berkshire Council. Really important that we have a independent, effective internal audit team. So within the report, it does say that we have a satisfactory level of assurance from internal audit. Internal audit fully conforms with the internal audit IA requirements. One thing which did cause quite a lot of consternation within the governance committee is the lack of our accounts being formally audited by our auditors, Grant Thornton. I think everyone in this room will agree the importance of external audit to make sure that our accounts are properly signed off, properly tested. And from my own perspective, I find it really difficult to understand how Grant Thornton appeared at the governance committee and didn't say sorry. They just said, well, really, the fact we didn't have enough time, didn't have enough resources to audit the accounts. They've taken the money, and it's really, as I say, to use accounting parlance, unsatisfactory that we have external auditors who don't do the job. So our accounts haven't been audited by Grant Thornton for 21-22, 22-23, and they're coming up with this, how would I put it, disclaimer that the accounts haven't been audited, no fault. So it's really a technical cop-out. And the team within finance worked really, really hard to make sure that the 23-24 accounts were published on time. One of, I say, 30% of councils which did comply with that timetable. So from my own perspective, as I say, Joseph and the team worked really, really hard. And I think it's really a bit of a slap in the face that Grant Thornton didn't have the resources or the aptitude, or really, I suppose, the awareness, yes, just to, as I say, comply with what they signed up to. So as I say, I'm really proud that we as an authority, we complied with the timescales of 23-24. For risk management, really key for us to understand our risks. So during the last year, there's been an introduction evaluation of the risk mapping methodology of having a heat map. There'll be further work done to extend the actual strategy going forward. So we're looking forward to having a new release upgrade of the risk management strategy over the forthcoming months. Also, we've done a self-assessment of the CIFRA financial code, which will be used by KPMG when they start their audit field work as they take over the baton from Grant Thornton. So, as I say, the governance committee is really important to us to give us assurance that the internal control environment is fit for purpose, that we have that level of scrutiny into the workings of West Berkshire. What's really disappointing was Grant Thornton's lack of awareness, lack of doing the work that they were engaged to do. It does mean that going forward, that KPMG will be auditing the accounts, so they'll probably have to do a little bit extra work to make sure that the opening position, which they would normally take the working papers from Grant Thornton, which are not there. So there will be probably an extra cost of them almost restating the opening position and closing position of the previous year. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Cotton. I'd like to invite others to speak. Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to pick up on that bit just for general understanding then really, Councillor Cotton, which is there any risk? Does the disclaimer alleviate any risk other than the obvious financial cost pressure that you've just alluded to at the end there?
So to answer your question, as Councillor McKinnon alluded to earlier, the fact that UK GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles. So there can be interpretation of accounting standards. What's really key is understanding what's within the balance sheet. And until we've had that deep dive on our balance sheet, we can't say categorically that there's no, how to say, issues which affect us at the current moment in time. We've obviously announced our year-end provisional outturn for 23-24, which is showing an overspend of 3.1 million reserves of 4 million, but until we've had that independent assessment to go through all of the lines of the balance sheet being provided by KPMG, we can't give that reassurance. I have confidence in the capability of Joseph and his team. I use that part of asking those questions and being directive. Even just today, I've been asking about what's deferred revenue with regarding deferred payments for adult social care. So really challenging. So I'm using that as part of my own due diligence, my own awareness of working in the profession as Councillor McKinnon, so qualified accountant for 30 odd years, to give that level of, how to put it, scrutiny and questioning, which I see my role being part of. So hopefully Joseph and the team appreciate that level of constructive questioning. Yeah, I'm not someone who will take things on face value.
Councillor McKinnon.
Oh, an opportunity to talk about external auditing, Chairman. Strap yourselves in, folks. It's gonna be a bumpy ride. I was an external auditor for 4 years, and that's 2 Olympic Games. 4 years. That's a long time to be an external auditor. Yeah, I've torn up my typical Lib Dem incompetence speech and defending external auditors. Everything that Councillor Cottingham said is correct. Now, I've heard about disclaimers of opinion being given when the auditors can't get the evidence they would usually be expected to be able to get. This is a whole new ballgame as far as I'm concerned, where they're talking about issuing a disclaimer of opinion because they can't be bothered to do the work. And Grant Thornton are the 5th biggest accounting firm in the world. They could do it if they wanted to. It's just going to cost them too much money and it's going to hit their profit margin. So it's extremely disappointing, and you have my full support.
Councillor Vickers.
I must admit, I'm not an auditor, I'm not an accountant, but I'm shocked by what Councillor Cottingham said, particularly the fact that I think Councillor Cottingham said that Grant Thornton have taken the money but not done the work for which that money was supposed to pay. Is that true? And if so, what can be done about it?
Can I defer to Mr. Holmes, who will give you a detailed answer to the work and the pressure which he's been bearing onto Grant Thornton? And just to pick up on the point of Councillor McKinnon, the average bonus of a Grant Thornton partner is roughly £600,000 to £700,000 last year. That's their average bonus. Not bad work, but yes.
Joseph Holmes.
Okay, through you, Chairman. So yes, we are awaiting the government to put a response out on the backstop proposals and these disclaimer proposals. But Grant Thornton have confirmed that we should and we expect to only pay them for the work that they have done and the percentage of work that they have delivered. So where the 2022-23 financial statements audit hasn't been completed by them, we do not expect to have to pay them for that, and nor will we.
Good. Councillor Cotton, would you like to?
I can just say how shocked I am at the lack of competence shown by this accountants. It really, they've let us down terribly. And, you know, we do, as the Conservatives did before us, and as we have done, responsibly made the books available to them, and they've just chosen not to do it. And seriously, I think there should be some kind of penalty against these people for their basically lack of professionalism. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Cotton, would you like to sum up?
I think we've had quite a robust debate over the issues which we face with regarding the assurance externally of our accounts. And as I say, we have appropriate governance in place, which is really, really key. What will be interesting will be once we have the initial assessment from KPMG, when they do part of their audit field work, they'll do an initial assessment, no doubt. And it'll be interesting once that comes back to governance, what their assessment of the closing position stroke opening balances are.
I've just noticed councillor Adrian Abs has got his hand up. Okay.
Don't think so.
All right, maybe. All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Lee Dillon had his hand up for a short while.
Yeah, I did, Chairman, but Councillor Vickers asked the same question, so that's why I put my hand back down.
Thank you. As the recommendation is to note the report, there's no need to hold a vote. Moving on to agenda item 19, annual scrutiny report. May I invite Councillor Caroline Culvert to formally move the recommendation within this report.
I would like to propose this. Thank you, Chairman.
And does it find a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. You wish to reserve your rights?
My apologies, I'll reserve. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. May I invite Councillor Culvert to introduce the report?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, members. It's my great pleasure to present this annual report from the Scrutiny Commission. I've very much enjoyed chairing it for the last year. I would like to thank the members of the Scrutiny Commission and also other members who have joined us to take part in task and finish groups. I also would like to thank Martha for her role in chairing the Health Scrutiny Committee and all of the officers who've come along to provide evidence, all of the third parties that have come along to provide evidence to us as well, and in particular to Gordon Oliver, who is clerk to Scrutiny Commission, and to Vicky Phoenix, who is clerk to Health Scrutiny Committee, for all their incredible hard work. As you will have seen from the report, it outlines the role of scrutiny. It talks about highlights from the previous year, what we've looked at in our work programme. I think some particular highlights were when we had Thames Water and the Environment Agency come to see us last October, and we had a very robust and detailed conversation there about flooding and sewage, which are obviously issues that have really impacted on the local community. And we also invited 7 members of the public to ask questions there, from Action for River Kennet, from the various flood forums, etc. So that really demonstrated that we take seriously the role of the public in scrutiny and giving them that opportunity to come along and for their voices to be heard. We also have had a couple of task and finish groups. So healthcare on new developments has concluded. COVID is not mentioned in here, I don't think, because it's only literally just concluded this week. So they will be reporting to council and executive shortly. And I thank Councillor Dick for chairing that. We've also looked at the budget, which of course is very challenging, and we've gone into that in a lot of detail. And my thanks to Joseph Holmes and to Ian Cottingham for their participation in those discussions. And Scrutiny also acts as the Crime and Disorder Committee. So the police have come along to a meeting, and they will be coming along later in the year to talk to us as well. In terms of things for the next 12 months, we've got special educational needs and high needs block that we're going to be looking at in September, which, as we know from budget discussions, is an area of challenge for the council. We will be having Thames Water and the Environment Agency coming back in October. We will be looking at attainment of children on free school meals. We will also be having a task and finish group about the sports hub and the lessons learned from that project. And we decided yesterday evening that we will have a task and finish group about project management. So we were going to have an item in September about that. We're now going to have a task and finish group that will enable us to have a much deeper dive into that area, where I know there are lots of concerns from a number of members. This report was actually a recommendation of the peer challenge review that we had recently. So we have moved very quickly to act upon that recommendation. And I hope it will give the public an opportunity to find out more about what we do. Some of the other peer challenge recommendations were to have improved visibility of the leadership of scrutiny. So I'm going to be having a meeting with the communications team to talk to them about how we can promote scrutiny. We've done quite a lot to let the public know that they can actually ask for things to be scrutinised, and a lot of people have taken the opportunity to do that, but we obviously can do more and make sure that people are aware that that avenue is available to them. And another recommendation was that we have a log of the things that we've recommended. So obviously when we recommend something, executive will come back to us and say, yes, we can do that, or no, we can't, and this is why. But what we really need is a very long-term log to look back and say, okay, have the things that you said you were going to do been implemented? And if they haven't, what is the reasoning for that? Just so that we keep that really long-term view of the recommendations that we've made. So I commend this report. And again, I thank all of the officers and the members who have made this whole process possible over the last year. Thank you.
You've been really busy. Can I open this up then to the floor? Anybody want to speak? No. Councillor Fitch?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to also actually pay tribute to the work that the officers did in the health impact assessments, because when we were looking at that in scrutiny, it was clear that this council was actually, in pretty many cases, ahead of the curve. You know, we were one of the initiators, really, because developers, we were told, I recall, were terrified of health impact assessments because they didn't really know what they involved. And the councillors, I beg your pardon, the officers here did quite a bit of work on drawing up a template for that, and also a shortened version, which I think was very well received by developers. So it's worth noting that contribution. Thank you.
Councillor McKinnon?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Now, Councillor Bowick is the Deputy Chairman of Scrutiny, and he's not here, but I know that he would want me to actually pay tribute to Councillor Culver herself and thank her for her hard work as Chairman of the Scrutiny Commission. I'm a member of the Commission myself, and I can see that she does work incredibly hard. And I think the Green Party and the Conservative Party, if you look at what's in their manifestos and things, we probably wouldn't agree on too much politically. But I think we've been able to work very well together on the Scrutiny Commission, and I think all my Conservative colleagues there would agree with that. So much of what the council does isn't really political, or it shouldn't be political. And I go back to something that I said when I gloriously began my term as Leader of the Opposition after a slight disagreement with the electorate back in May 2023. It's an unfortunate habit that I'm developing of having a slight disagreement with the electorate, but they're never wrong, as they say. And to say that we're all here for the same reason, aren't we? We're all here to do our bit for the residents of West Berkshire, and sometimes we disagree about how best to do that, but in other cases we actually agree across party lines, and I think that's really important to continue. So thank you, Chairman, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Councillor Marsh?
Thank you, Chair. I've just to endorse what Councillor McKinnon has said. We're all being very friendly to each other tonight, but I do think that the Scrutiny Commission work has shown what can be achieved through constructive cross-party working, and some of that goes right back to the decision by the administration to make an opposition councillor the chair, which I think has been vindicated as a really good decision. And just to add to the praise, not to embarrass her, but just to add to the praise for Councillor Culver, I know how hard she works in that role, and she puts a huge amount of time in and gets through an awful lot of reading of papers and documents and so on. And I think you can see that, but it's not just down to her, it's down to the members, as we've heard, and down to the officers. And I think that an example of how well it's worked with the budget last year was, earlier this year rather, was by far the most kind of constructive budget debate we've had. And a lot of the questions that in previous years we've been arguing about for hours at the annual budget meeting had been resolved beforehand, in part by this very effective scrutiny by the Scrutiny Commission. And I'd also, just to mention, as Caroline did, the Thames Water was the first concerted effort in this district to sit down and hold Thames Water and the Environment Agency to account for their dereliction of duty when it comes to providing the required service in terms of water to the residents of the area. So that was a good session, and I'm sure there'll be more. And I just want to commend the work that's been done, and by the Health Scrutiny Commission too. And, you know, it doesn't sound like, it never used to sound to me all that interesting or glamorous scrutiny, I confess. But listening to Councillor Culver listing the things that they're going to be doing in the years to come, it's quite an exciting package of measures there. I really look forward to seeing what you all come up with. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cottingham.
So I'd just like to bring my own thoughts to the benefits of scrutiny. So someone who worked in the corporate sector for 30 odd years, this is something which I believe passionately that the corporate world could actually learn from. Having this level of scrutiny from an independent 360 degrees of challenge. There's so many decisions which are made in the corporate world, which just get pushed through. And you've seen what's happened, go back to the financial crisis of 2008. I do believe if that level of scrutiny had been on the banks, we wouldn't have been in the position of having the financial crash. So what Councillor Culver has done, she's developed a tone within the committee whereby across the benches, you have that level of questioning, and it's non-political from my perspective. I got just as many difficult questions from behind me as I did in front. So on the budget. So I would like to commend Councillor Culver with setting that tone and encouraging that level of questioning and challenge. Well done.
Councillor Pemberton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not too much from me. I think most of it's already been said, but carrying on the spirit of kindness, I'd also like to echo the words of Councillor Marsh and Councillor McKinnon, although he's not on his place at the moment. She is extremely thorough, fastidious, and nothing gets past her. I think that's testament to how well the committee's been run this year, and it's been a pleasure to serve under her. The topics that the committee has considered have been extremely wide-ranging. They've needed a variety of different approaches. And I think it's fair to say that the members have been extremely open-minded. We've shown ourselves willing to work with our executive colleagues and officers and sometimes vote across party lines, as uncomfortable as that can sometimes be. Building knowledge is key to insightful questioning. And I have to say, from my perspective, I've done it for a year. I'm on a very, very steep learning curve. So again, I am grateful to Councillor Culver for guiding me through that. And I think the year's also given the members, especially new ones such as myself, the opportunity to really get to know some of the council services and external matters within the committee's remit. It's been said already, we've got some really big pieces of work coming up, so plenty to keep us busy. So again, I'd like to close by repeating the thanks that have already been mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor Culver, would you like to respond to any points raised?
Thank you very much indeed to all members for your very kind words. I don't have anything else to add apart from to say that I will dedicate myself 100% to this process over the next year and look forward to serving the council in that capacity and indeed the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a recommendation is to note the report, there's no need to hold a vote. Moving on to agenda item 20, Health and Wellbeing Annual Report. May I invite Councillor Heather Codling to formally move the recommendation, continue within the report.
So moved.
May I ask for a seconder?
Happy to second, Chair, and reserve my right.
Thank you very much. I invite Councillor Codling to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. First of all, I want to, I feel a bit of an imposter because actually I've only chaired one meeting of this board so far. I'd like to give my thanks to Councillor Alan Macrow for him doing the work for the previous year. It really was appreciated. And also our outgoing Director of Public Health, John Ashworth, who has now finished his term with us. And we have Matt Pearce back. Some of you will already know him, and he is our new Director of Public Health. I am delighted to propose this report, and I just want to highlight a couple of things that we've gone over. This board is very much bringing people together from ICB and various other health groups, doctors, pharmacies, dentists, and we sit in this chamber and we discuss the benefits of public health and how we bring it together. We've talked about the cost of living crisis and what we can do working with the charities and things like that to assist people. We've talked about the pharmacies locally. We've had a number close, but I must say I'm quite pleased to say there are new ones opening, and also the additional work that pharmacists are now being asked to do with Pharmacy First. So to save you going to your GP, you go to your pharmacist. We've also had a number of hot focus sessions where we've actually got experts in the room, and we've talked about the inequalities of health across our district. So those who are not able to access the right information about health. And we've also been, we talked about housing and how that affects people's house. If you live in poor housing, you're likely to have poor outcomes and your health is likely to be poor. This report also talks about our priorities for the coming year. They are to reduce the differences in health between different groups of people, support individuals at high risk of bad health outcomes to live healthy lives, help families and children in early years, promote good mental health and well-being for all children and young people, and to promote good mental health and well-being for all adults. I look forward to working with officers and external partners on this over the coming year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite others to speak. No? No? Councillor Foote.
Thanks, Chair. It's really just to quote John Ashworth, who was referenced as a very experienced Director of Public Health that has recently left as we've got our new permanent appointment. But he had loads of quotes, actually, that he was very good at coming out. They were all worth noting. But the one that struck me, or the one I'd like to share, is that he said that local authorities and local government can be described as the political wing of public health, which I think is really quite something for us all to reflect on. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I can remember when there was a complete disconnect between health services and social care, public safety, public health in this council. And the Health and Wellbeing Board, a statutory body, started to bring those bodies together for the greater good of information exchange initiatives that would make a difference. And this is what we see here, those initiatives coming through in this annual report, as it's been doing for some years. So it's performing a very good function. I think it can get better. And I said in this chamber last week that I think could be a little bit more emphasis on outcomes, but the very healthy fact of getting in the room and sharing the knowledge, wisdom, initiatives, issues is vital. And I know Gordon Oliver does a tremendous amount of work in supporting this body, the Health and Wellbeing Board, and a range of sub-boards or subgroups that feed into the Health and Wellbeing body. I'd like to pick up what Councillor Codling said. I think housing should have more representation at the Health and Wellbeing Board, because as you just said, Councillor Codling, poor housing leads to poor health outcomes very often. And I think we need housing represented in the Health and Wellbeing body. But a good report, lots to read and lots to see initiatives that have taken the agenda forward. So I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Codling.
As we're quoting John Ashworth, I'll give you another one that he said, which I loved. Die young, as old as possible. I loved it. I don't think I have anything else to add.
Thank you very much. As the recommendation is to note the report, there is no need to hold a vote. Moving on to agenda item 21, notice of motions. Proportional representation. May I invite Councillor Justin Pemberton to formally move the motion?
Could I put a little bit of context before Councillor Pemberton moves the motion, please? Councillor Abbs put this motion in. That's on the paperwork, and I think a slight explanation should be made. Councillor Abbs rang me and said, I'm on holiday. I don't know if he realised that when he put the motion in, or one came after the other or whatever, but he said, would our group wish to take it up and put it forward? That's the context in which Councillor Pemberton will be putting the motion forward, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite Councillor Justin Pemberton to formally move the motion on behalf of Councillor Adrian Abbs.
So, Chair, I'm introducing the motion with the amendment that should be appearing on screen, I believe.
Right. Is it find the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I formally second and reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. Advise that the council will debate the motion this evening in order to facilitate the discharge of business in accordance with procedure rule 12.6.3. I invite Councillor Pemberton to speak on the motion for up to 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members, the general election which we've just had was in many ways a democratic disgrace. The low turnout, the capacity for the Labour Party to form a government with an enormous majority on a very modest vote, the distortion between the number of seats that my party won this time around compared to what we won in 2019, with a mere 0.6% increase in the total vote share and all the rest. I'm going to say something controversial now. I mentioned the forbidden B word, Brexit, but don't worry too much, Councillor Brooks. The Liberal Democrats is a pro-European party. I voted Remain in the 2016 referendum, but the entire political landscape is virtually devoid of any mention of the subject or its impact. The incoming government has talked about resetting those relationships with Europe, but there's no real conversation taking place about how we got here or the financial damage which Brexit continues to cause. Now, I'm not here to talk about Brexit. The election involved a range of domestic issues as well. But with the greatest of respect to both the Conservative and Labour parties in particular, there was no real solution during the election campaign put to issues for the NHS, public services more generally, or housing. Obviously, it's now down to the Labour government to work on the agenda it set out earlier this week in the King's speech. But it was an astonishing election, actually, and it showed the fragility of British politics and the extent to which we are really in new territory. I would like to see our elected representatives to be actually representative of the votes which are cast. And I can hear the clarion call already from our Conservative colleagues that a more proportionate system would produce unstable coalitions and all of the rest of it. Well, I'm going to keep quiet on the kinds of government that we've seen in particular over the last 5 years. But what I would say is that the only coalition government that I remember in my lifetime was very stable. It may not have worked out well for my party, but it lasted the whole 5-year term, and away from the headlines, actually produced some fairly progressive and far-reaching legislation, particularly around climate change and criminal justice, among many other things. A different electoral system would force our politicians to change their offering to appeal to a broader cohort of voters. At the moment, we all know that there are safe seats and groups of voters that are more or less inclined to vote. And I think testimony to the result that we saw in the recent election was the extent to which people voted tactically, knowing that their preferred candidate couldn't win in a particular area. In any general election held in this country under the first past the post system,
Councillor Pemberton, would you like to bring it to a close?
the vast majority of votes were not cast in favour of the winning party. The vast majority of those votes did not count in terms of the government which was elected, and I believe this has to change. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Abbs. Yeah, what's her name? Mark Shakespeare.
That's Councillor Abbs on the screen.
Councillor Abbs, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see me. All I can see is the amendments on the screen. I thought you were going to discuss the amendments first and then come back to the substantive, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll say the few things I want to say. First, an explanation, Jeff. I booked this holiday 2 years ago. So before we even went into the last election, and this was the soonest I could get the place. So before the general election, before anything else, and certainly well before I put the motion in, the motion should have been standing in its own right. Can you not hear me, or is there some?
Oh, I can hear you, Jim.
Okay, fine. Sorry. So I think it is quite serendipitous that the sorry, I'm distracted by Councillor Brooks. Are you trying to indicate something, Councillor? I can see your hand and stuff. Am I missing something?
Councillor Adams, I'm just indicating I'd like to speak, sir.
Oh, sorry. Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks. I do think it's very serendipitous that the motion has come now after the general election that we've just had, and especially given the result. And just to add a few numbers to what's been said, the lowest in the UK is 40% of our voters voted. 40% in Manchester, Rusholme. Which is it's just not democracy anymore. The IPPR think tank, which wrote an article recently, actually says that nationally, only 52%, not the 60% we hear in the news, but only 52% of the people who could have voted if they'd registered, etc., voted. So that's with the Labour getting just 35% of those votes cast. That means we have just over 18% of people saying, yes, I want everything. I want you to have unfettered power to be able to do what you want with a massive majority, and I'm quite happy with the outcome. It's clearly not democratic. It's very close to being a rotten government, as they used to have the rotten boroughs, and as the motion talks about rotten as well. So I think we have to move on. You know, first past the post has its positives, but it has far too many negatives now. And as a businessman and with my business hat on, what I want is stability. I don't want change, that horrible slogan that was used throughout the campaign. Change is not stability. What actually business wants is a set of rules that it can grow by, and those rules to stay stable. We need a period of time where we can actually have long-term plans in place, not every 5 years or whatever we have to change parliaments. Yes, absolutely, sir. That was it, really. I think it's come at the right time, so I hope you do vote in favour of this and its amendments. Thank you.
No, Councillor Carter. When you go.
No, it was Councillor Reid, I think.
Yeah, Councillor.
I was going to say something, but I didn't think I'd put my hand up. So I think
No,
wasn't Councillor
Reid.
Councillor Brooks first. I have got a quick comment, but I don't want to jump the gun. Did you call me?
Councillor Reid, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor. There's no seats.
Thank you, Chair. I have no objection really to the whole principle of this. However, as an exile of the once great kingdom of East Anglia, I am a little bit concerned that you've called Dunwich, our ancient kingdom of East Anglia, a rotten borough.
Sorry.
The very fact that, yes, we've had a few incidents with major storms during the 13th and 14th century, ending up in the Great Mandrake of 1362 in January, when the whole town was swept away, leaving just 80 houses, 8 whole churches being destroyed. I don't think that's really any reason that actually the ancient kingdom of East Anglia and its capital Dunwich should not return an MP to Parliament. After all, if you stand on the cliffs of Dunwich now, at certain tides, you can still hear the bells of those 8 churches. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. And let's remind ourselves, we're speaking to the amendment. The amendment's on the screen. And what we've added to Councillor Abb's motion is that the system we would look to press for is the single transferable vote system. We've also added to call upon West Berkshire's 2 MPs to push for a change to electoral law to implement PR under the STV system and to promote the matter of a debate within Parliament. I think one of those MPs could probably hear me now. I'm delighted that Councillor Taylor will second this, because it will be very, very interesting to see if the Parliamentary Labour Party have the appetite to take this sort of thing on. They actually teased Paddy Ashdown of the Liberal Democrats with the idea of perhaps introducing PR before the 1997 election, when Tony Blair got on by a landslide and sort of forgot about the idea. And the first past the post is very seductive if you end up with a big majority. So it'll be interesting to see what the Prime Minister thinks of that idea. I noticed nothing came forward in the King's speech yesterday. What I would say, by the way, Chairman, I may be wrong, but I thought introduce a motion, you had 5 minutes and the rest of us had 3. I'll take that up with the Constitution Working Party. So
Brooks, you've got 30 seconds left.
Okay. And I wasted 15 talking about the 5 seconds. So I will say, if Councillor McKinnon gets up now and says we're debating something that's not important in this chamber, and you may not say that, Councillor, 37 councillors have put down similar motions to this, and I hope the amendment is carried tonight. Because it's important, it's appetite, it's our policy, and we'd like to see one of the 2 main parties, if you like, really embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKinnon.
You try and do that all the time, don't you? Try and anticipate what I'm going to say and then try and spike it before I say it. But no, guilty as charged. Councillor Pemberton, I've got so much to say about PR and pros and cons. Brexit was 8 years ago, guys. I think you do need to let it go. But that is just, no, okay, well, don't. That's fine. That will help us at the ballot box next time. But I'm wasting everyone's time by talking about it, right? We've had a really good agenda. It's been a bit friendly, maybe a bit too friendly, which is why this is here. But we've heard about the work of the Scrutiny Commission. We've heard about the work of the Health and Wellbeing Board. These are important council functions. This is not. This is in the purview firmly of Westminster. Guys, I don't know how many more of you are going to get up and talk about PR and how it's brilliant and how it's going to, change democracy. It doesn't matter what you say here. It really doesn't. Nobody's going to care. And residents are going to look at us and say, why are they wasting time talking about Westminster matters when we could have been talking about the schools forum decision, which Councillor Marsh, he submitted 3 emergency questions tonight, which we're told we're not able to hear. Now that's bang smack in the middle of what this council should be debating, not having a very pleasant, I'm sure, and interesting debating chamber. Every single time a motion like this comes before this council, I'm going to abstain on it and I'm going to say the same thing. We all know how all you guys are going to vote. Let's get on with it. And one of our MPs is here, and I congratulate him again on his elections. I've not seen him since about 6:30 on the Friday morning on the 5th of July, and I'm feeling a lot better now than I was then. So it's nice to see him again, and congratulations. But yes, we represent residents. So does he. So does Olivia Bailey and the other part of the constituency, right? If residents want to talk about PR, let them talk to them. And let us get on with the business of running this council and providing services for residents. Yeah.
Councillor Lee Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I'm standing to declare a clear interest on point 2, as I'd end up voting.
Apologies, could you grab a microphone?
Yeah, sorry, Lee.
Sorry, yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was just rising really to declare an interest, given that item 2 is to write to or to call on both of the MPs in West Berkshire to take action. If I hadn't have declared an interest, then I would happily rebut some of Councillor McKinnon's points that he raised, but constitutionally that wouldn't be appropriate. So I won't take any further part in the debate, nor will I vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair. Well, taking on board Councillor McKinnon's comments, which, I mean, he makes a good point, is not, it's not as relevant to perhaps to our local residents as some of the issues we could be talking about. However, I'm going to say something that no one else has mentioned, which I did suggest to Councillor Abbs, and I'm very pleased in behalf of our group that we're all united on this and that we've had Councillor Abbs putting the motion forward, and it's going to be seconded by a Labour colleague. But when he was drafting it, I did suggest putting in something about local elections. And in the end, we thought, well, if this were ever to happen nationally, it would be very soon. There would be no time at all before it was rolled out to local authorities, as it is in many parts of the UK, actually. It's just England that really doesn't have it. And so since nobody's mentioned it, I want to mention it. I think it would be of great benefit to local democracy, and that would affect our relevance and residents. And perhaps, since someone's mentioned the turnout, would improve the turnout in wards where it's not much more than 20%. And even the best wards, such as my own, where the turnout is only about 48%. So if people felt that their vote counted for more and they had more, and they got a reasonable chance of getting someone they supported elected, if they're in a safe seat, then I think that would be hugely beneficial. And no disrespect to members of Thatcham Town Council who are here, but it is ridiculous that Thatcham Town Council has 19 Liberal Democrat members and no one else. The people in Thatcham who vote Conservative, which is not an insignificant number, should have 1 or 2 councillors at least. Same for the people who vote Labour or Green, and the same on other towns such as Newbury and parishes. And that, you know, in 2015, this council had 48 Conservatives and 4 Liberal Democrats and no one else, despite the fact that thousands of people across West Berkshire were voting for these other parties. And no wonder people became somewhat demoralised and disillusioned. So I personally think that if this were to happen nationally, the greatest benefit might be to this local authority and to others, where it would become more relevant to people, where they'd have a proper choice, where they were represented on a council, not having no members from parties that had significant votes, as we found happening last year. And for that reason alone, I would urge members to support this. And of course, I also support the substantive argument for doing this nationally. And just finally, I did enjoy Councillor Reid's idiosyncratic contribution to the debate. And I've got to, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Dunwich is now in a green constituency of Waveney Valley in Suffolk. So it's worked out well for them in the end, Councillor Reid.
Is that? Mike Shakespeare, Councillor Shakespeare, is that?
No.
Yes, it's just a quick one. I'm mindful I don't want to make this go on longer than it should, but just on the election turnout, I'm not personally convinced that the election turnout is hugely proportionate to the election method. A quick look on the government website suggests there are a lot of other factors there, so I certainly don't criticise people in this election for not having voted for a bunch of reasons. I think the analysis suggests that there are other reasons that they didn't vote this time than the election method. That was just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Councillor Shakespeare. Yeah. Councillor Carter?
That was Councillor Carter.
No, sorry.
Councillor Shea.
Councillor Culver? Culver?
No.
Taylor. Oh, yeah, second. Sorry. Yeah. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll try and be fairly brief, as we've spent quite some time on this, and I think a lot of very good points have been made. I mean, I was delighted with the result of the general election, obviously, as you would well appreciate. But I have to say, I was extremely embarrassed that Labour won that election. They won 63% of the seats on 34%. I think it was 34 rather than 35, actually, of the vote. And I'm embarrassed that that was the situation. Indeed, I think far worse than the statistics that actually are shown in the motion itself, which I think were from the previous election. And I think it's important that people going out to vote feel that they've got a real say in this. And I was certainly meeting people on the doorstep, and I knocked on a huge number of doors, and I was really rather shocked by the number of people that saying they didn't want to vote for lots of different reasons. But I think in some cases because they felt it wasn't really going to help the candidate they would really like to see elected, have any chance at all. So I think it's important that we pick up the point that Ross made. I think if councils like ourselves pass motions like this, I think if lots of councils do it, lots of bodies do it, it will start to have an influence on our members of parliament. I will be conveying the result of this, and I'm very much hoping this will be carried to Olivia Bailey, and I will do that tomorrow. I will speak to her about this. And I think with that, I would commend this motion to everybody. I hope you will give it your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pemberton?
Yes, thank you, Chair. No further comments from me. I think it's all been said. Thank you.
I'll ask the monitor officer to conduct a vote.
I think we need to vote on the proposed amendment first. So if I could have a show of hands for the amendment. And against. And any abstentions? I can confirm that's been carried. Well, it's overruled by the- Yeah. Can I take a vote on the substantive? Do we have the motion in front of us? Yeah.
I do have to say, I'm sorry, the procedures are that you would then ask for the proposer of the motion as amended, propose the substantive motion and it be seconded. And then you see if it wants to be debated again, which I very much doubt, but that is the process.
Thank you.
Can I have a proposer of the? Companion bus passes. Oh, wow, now we have no.
Forgive me again.
Yeah, sorry.
You should call for the proposer of the motion as amended to propose it as amended and a seconder there too. Then you open it up for another debate if the members wish to debate the substantive motion as amended.
Thank you. Can I take a vote on the, so would you like to take on the original motion? That's what I'm confused about because it's just been voted on the
Let it
proposed
twice now,
amendment.
I'm almost going to introduce it. Would the proposer of the amendment now wish to propose the substantive motion? That's the words. Then is there a seconder? If you just say that, Nikki.
Councillor Pemberton, would you like to propose the amendments? I'd understood that had been made at the outset.
Chairman, I'd like to propose. The motion is amended.
Call for a seconder, Chairman, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second the amended motion.
No, I won't be speaking to the motion.
Councillor Alves, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do actually. It's just to add one line, because I was on the doorstep, similar to Councillor McKinnon, and it was been mentioned in passing. But I just want to reiterate the number of people that were saying that they felt it wasn't worth voting. It was substantial. And, you know, I was going around talking just as many as Clive there was. And probably 3 to 4 people were saying they didn't really think it was going to make a difference, wasn't worth bothering. We have to change our system to something that gives them a reason to vote. If we need to go further later, fine. But for now, we just need to give them a decent choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I take a vote on the proposed amendment, which is before you on the screen? Those for the proposed amendment. Thank you. Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you.
Yeah, moving on to companion bus passes. May I invite David Marsh to formally move the motion?
Yes, I formally move the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Does it find a seconder? Councillor Colbert. Thank
I'd
you.
like to second, please, Chairman.
Yeah. invite councillor Marsh to speak to the motion for up to 3 minutes.
5 minutes, is it not, Chair? 5 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes here.
3 minutes.
Okay, well, companion bus passes are when you get a bus pass, and if you have, in areas that do this, which is most places, if you have a severe disability, for example, blindness, and cannot travel independently, you have the pass is marked that you can take a companion with you and they can accompany you on your journey and don't have to pay. Now, West Berkshire had this system until the austerity cuts of 2016, so that if you go to the website now, it says the council no longer issues companion bus passes to residents. If you require a companion when using the bus, they would be expected to pay the full fare. Well, if that sounds heartless, it's because it is heartless. It was only to save about £10,000, which is not a huge amount for the council, even a cash-strapped council, and other local authorities in the area somehow managed to keep theirs. And it's really remarkable. Oxfordshire County Council, Wiltshire County Council, Hampshire County Council, Reading Borough Council, the Royal Borough of Windsor and Eton, they've all got a companion bus pass system. And in fact, in some cases, as I say in the motion, they're reciprocal. So if you have a companion bus pass in Wiltshire, you can travel with a companion free of charge in Swindon, Bath and North East Somerset, Bristol, Dorset and South Gloucestershire, as well as Hampshire. So that's a real sort of what you might call a freedom pass for an awful lot of people. So why is it such a good scheme and transformative? Well, if you're blind or otherwise severely disabled, not everyone, for a start, you can't drive. You're not allowed to drive. You're not able to drive. Not everyone can rely on a neighbour who can drive to give them a lift, a neighbour or a friend or a member of the family. And not everyone, believe it or not, can take someone on a regular basis. Perhaps they might want to use the bus 3 or 4 times a week, perfectly reasonably, as I can do with my bus pass. Not everyone can afford, or their companion cannot afford to pay the fare if they're below the age where they would get their own pass. So to give an example of this, for just one, I mean, there are plenty of people about in this situation. Somebody in my ward who is registered blind cannot travel easily to visit their mother in a different part of the district. There is a bus service, but they can't use the bus service by themselves. And if they could have a companion pass, as they used to have when they lived in one of the local authorities I've just mentioned, that would enable, it would be
Councillor Marsh, can I just let you get 30 seconds left?
I really thought it was 5 minutes, Chair. I'm very surprised. So it would transform their life is what I want to say. And I don't think it would cost very much. I would really hope that members will support this and that the first possible opportunity we can restore this really worthwhile scheme and stop discriminating against people who, through no fault of their own, cannot travel independently. Let's get more people on the buses, which is something that we want to do, and people who really need to get on the buses and would really value the service if they could take a companion with them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I invite Stuart Gall, councillor? And sorry, can I just say, advise the council will not debate this motion this evening, and in accordance with the procedure rule 12.6.1, this will be referred to the Transport Advisory Group and the Executive for consideration as the detail of the motion falls within the remit of the Executive. I'd like to invite Councillor Stuart Gawley to speak as portfolio holder for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Marsh, for bringing this motion to Council. We will review this at the Transport Advisory Group, which I believe you are a member of, so that we can ensure proper input from members and proper consideration is given to this important topic. As a point of clarification, I think in the original motion it states that it's centrally government funded for companion bus passes. It's not currently, it comes out of the revenue budget of the council. And it's also worth noting as well that central government were looking to review the eligibility for concessionary travel, and therefore it might be worth waiting for that guidance to come and we can review it together before making any decision on reintroducing the companion bus pass scheme. But I do look forward to taking this to the next tag and discussing it fully. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then moving on to agenda item 22, members' questions. Councillor.
Sorry, Chair, could I raise a point of order? Is that okay?
Yes.
So just before we start with members' questions, as some members are aware, I submitted 3 emergency questions on the matter of this week's cuts to a dozen or so school budgets across the district. Now, I've been told that you're ruling this it's a point of order, and you're ruling it out because the decision was taken in time for me to submit questions in the normal way in advance of the meeting. But the decision, it's true that the principle of this clawback was agreed in
I'm sorry,
June.
Councillor,
The amounts that
we've already given you an answer this afternoon.
The amounts.
Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just say?
I must ask you to sit down, Councillor.
Why do you want this to be discovered? I don't understand it, Chair. Absolutely don't understand it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Members' questions. Howard Wilson to be answered by Ian Cottingham.
So thank you very much, Councillor Wilson, for your question. First of all, I'd like to apologise that your previous question and follow-up question wasn't answered. You didn't receive a response. So I've actually asked for an investigation why that did not occur. So you have my personal word that we'll find out what happened to the follow-up question and the answer you didn't receive. So really apologise on behalf of myself that didn't occur. So to answer your question for this evening, during 23-24, the council externalised financing of its capital financing requirement, CFR, as internal working capital, i.e. the balance sheet resources were depleted. In accordance with the council's borrowing strategy, which focuses on borrowing short-term, the council focused on borrowing short-term via local authority markets. When availability of the local authority markets was constrained, the council sought to remove the risk of unavailable funds through the usage of the Public Works Loan Board. At the time, the Public Works Loan Board financing was obtained at an average of 5.4%. I think currently, long-term, it's around about 5.5% at the moment. The local authority market rates were on an average of between 6 to 7%, reflecting a restriction of available funds within the sector. The financing obtained continues to support financing of the CFR. Local authority borrowing rates on average are currently between 5.1 to 5.2% for a 1 to 3 month period. In summary, at the time of undertaking financing from the Public Works Loan Board, the availability of short-term financing was constrained, with average lending rates of between 6 to 7%. To mitigate the risk of lack of funding and avoid additional bank charges, to raise 25 million in £5 million tranches, covering periods of between 12 to 18 months at approximately 5.4% was undertaken. As previously mentioned, this compares to the current average local authority lending rates of 5.1 to 5.2%. The council's current weighted average cost of borrowing is 3.6%. Once long-term borrowing rates start to fall and comparable with the current weighted average, the council will step back into long-term borrowing. So in summary, we're waiting for long-term interest rates to fall to 3.4, which is weighted average. At the moment, we don't want to go into long-term borrowing until that fall happens. Do you have a follow-up question?
Councillor Wilson, do you have a supplementary question arising to the answer to your original question?
Thank you, Chairman. The answer you've given, Councillor Cottingham, is obviously very sensible in terms of money rates. But what you haven't answered is what have you spent the £25 million on?
We'll give you a follow-up question. So to that question. So a good illustration. So I won't get into accounting speak too much detail. So you have the difference between accruals accounting and cash accounting. So good illustration. We talked about earlier is the deferred payments for adult social care. So currently we have to fund out of our own cash resources residents who are utilising our care homes and have a deferred payment. So we start billing and we have to incur that cost. And that's the type of thing which we're having to borrow money for to fund short-term cash requirements. When we can give you a fuller detail of all of the examples of why we're having to borrow cash for on short-term borrowing rates.
I assume, Chair, you won't let me have a follow-up.
A question from Councillor Dominic Boyd to Denise Gaines, but Councillor Dominic's not here this evening. We'll give him a written answer. Next question is from Councillor Chris Reid to be answered by Councillor Denise Gaines.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Reid, for your question. The statement of common ground set out 3 potential options that could be pursued to develop a master plan for the North East Thatcham allocation. The 3 options were put forward at the request of the inspector, and the council has made it clear that the preferred option is for the production of a master plan to be commissioned and led by the council so that it can be secure appropriate engagement and consultation and be approved by full council prior to submission of a planning application. Those 2 bits are actually linked to the second and third option within that statement of common ground. The proposed policy has been drafted the proposed policy has been drafted accordingly to achieve this. It's envisaged that the precise nature of this engagement and consultation will be developed in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and housing at that time and specified in the project brief for the production of the master plan. Do you have a supplementary?
I believe there is an option also that supplementary planning documents can also be part of the master plan to be submitted. And I just wondered if that is being considered by the council as well.
That is a third option, Councillor Reid, on that statement of common ground. I think we are looking at the moment at a master plan rather than actually an SPD.
And another question from Councillor Chris Reid to be answered by Councillor Denise Gaines.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reid, for your question. The inspector has detailed 3 potential options that could be followed to develop a master plan for the North East Thatcham, one of which is through development of a supplementary planning document, an SPD, that you mentioned just a moment ago. An SPD is a useful way to provide more detailed advice or guidance on policies in an adopted local plan. However, it does not form part of the development plan and cannot introduce new planning policies. As such, whether the master plan is adopted as an SPD or not will not make a significant difference. What matters is the quality of the master plan production process. The council has worded the policy to secure the development of a master plan led by the council with full engagement and consultation. The inspector will consider the merits or otherwise of the 3 options I mentioned a moment ago. That were put forward and will indicate whether a supplementary planning document is necessary to secure these aims and will advise the council accordingly. It was supplementary.
I wonder if the council has a definition of what consultation is and if that could include members and the community.
As I said, it's a full consultation, so that will actually, it will certainly include members because it's going to come to full council.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for an exciting meeting. And we'll call it to an end. Thank you.